people who performed sexual favors in school or in the workplace to get ahead. What was it for? And what are things like now? In the 90s, I had an affair with a woman who hired me at a startup.com. I was 24, she was late 40s. I had graduated with a degree in philosophy and was running a blog when she hired me as a copywriter, graphic artist, a position that I was not qualified for. She installed me next to her office on the floor below sales, a basically deserted space where we were alone all day. We had sex at work several times, but mostly kept our activities to her place. She also found me a nearby apartment, arranged for me to live in a motel until it was ready, and involved herself in other aspects of my life. She was not an attractive or pleasant woman, and the nature of our relationship was transactional, at least at first. I also worked my ass off, so I wasn't coasting just because I was effing her. Anyways, the company went bust just 9 months after I joined. By then, I had been promoted to content development and had the 4th highest position in the company. I was also basically living with this woman who had turned out to be possessive, delusional, and overall nuts. When the company folded, she started talking about us moving to another startup and getting married. At that point, I ended it and went to grad school instead. Worked in a warehouse 10 years ago. I had the most physical job there, constantly slagging around 130 pounds plus product by hand, so I was reasonably jacked after about 4 months there. My job was automated at every other warehouse we owned, but the office manager seemed to like looking at me, and I beat the robots in efficiency and accuracy, so she kept me around. She asked for my help moving some heavy shit one day in her office at the end of the day, and I didn't think anything of it. Shoulder was really sore that day, and she noticed me favoring it, so when I was done, she told me she used to work as a massage therapist, and offered to help my shoulder. Literally thought nothing of it until 3 minutes into the massage. Her hands were no longer on my shoulder, instead, on my junk. She was reasonably attractive, and everyone else had left for the day, so I took advantage of the situation and fed her brains out. 3 days later, I got a $3 an hour raise. The company was 4 months into a pay freeze. Her justification: I was beating the robots. We fed a few times a week, and I got an extra few days off a month, paid, because she was concerned about my shoulder. Reddit, thanks for the silver and plat. My wife was an intern at an IT company. She fed one of the managers on a daily basis. She got awesome grades. She ended up marrying him. Edit, holy crap, this blew up. Thanks for the gold, guys. Little follow-up. As soon as we got in a serious relationship, she left the company. We have been married for over 10 years and have 2 kids. We are still very happy together. Used to blow my boss every Thursday. We had sex once. It was just a part-time retail gig and I got a bigger raise than my more deserving co-workers around the time it started. Actually felt pretty bad about that. I wasn't a lousy employee by any means, but my one co-worker seriously busted her ass and got a smaller raise. But he always let me go home early if we weren't super busy. That was nice. Edit, well chick. I'll try to answer questions later, but I gotta go to a different job now. Sadly, there is no one to blow at this job, though a few have tried. Dated my professor, but not to get ahead or for favors. I was looking to hook up maybe a few times, but somehow got a fairly serious relationship out of it. Helped me in fixing an administrative problem, postponed one pop quiz I wasn't ready for, but didn't tell me anything about the final. Actually gave me some answers for an assignment in a different class, which saved me a lot of time. It meant gambling on not breaking up before I graduated, though, because I didn't want to risk retaliation. Not that I actually thought they'd do something to prevent me from graduating, but I didn't want to worry about it. So that was a major downside, but forced me to try harder to work through relationship issues. Definitely a learning experience. It wasn't really sexual favors. I dated my boss when I worked at a certain child care center. I definitely got some preferred treatment out of it. We weren't allowed to date for obvious reasons, so it was mostly a sexual relationship. I think the fact that it felt wrong made the sex hotter. It was some of the best sex I've had. That led to us pushing our limits, which led to us getting caught. By the time we were outed as being in a relationship, we were having sex at work. I was giving him blowjobs during my lunch break, staying late for a quickie when no one else was there. I didn't do it for the preferred treatment, just the sex. But I did get easier and more regular hours, got to pick which classroom I was in, stuff like that. My former boss at a tech company asked me to go away with her for the weekend with her. I declined. My buddy, being the opportunist, started banging her. I received a 2% annual raise and my buddy got a 20% raise. In hindsight, I should have banged her. When I was in college, I worked in a little family-owned restaurant. The owner's wife was the manager, and, well, she came on to me and we started deffing regularly. It was great because I got to call out whenever I wanted, leave early whenever I wanted, got all the good tables, good shifts, free food, unlimited smoke breaks. But all my co-workers hated me. And since she was married, I know I'm a piece of shit. I was young and stupid and she was attractive. I knew we weren't going to be together, so when I met someone my own age at school and started dating her, she got really crazy and I ended up getting fired for. I can't even remember now. I was fired for some stupid reason, but it was really because she couldn't bear to see me anymore if I didn't want her. She would text and call me for months afterwards, and even showed up at my apartment a few times and also lied saying I got her pregnant. She wasn't. She showed up at my new job and started a huge scene and almost got me fired my first week. So overall, 4 out of 10 wouldn't recommend. Started dating a site supervisor when I was doing security, not directly mine but still. I'm happier. We moved across the country, which I always wanted, and much better off in life than I was before. We are getting married in 2 years. A guy in university administration was busted for embezzling. He might have got away with it, except his co-worker/mistress noticed that the guy's co-worker/wife got a new set of D cups, and demanded the same. So he paid for her surgery, too, also with university funds. Rather than bust anyone, they simply pushed the embezzler into retirement, and left the two ladies alone. They were also friends, so for years afterwards these two old crones could be seen showing off their earnings while smoking Virginia Slims. Like Bentley grills on a couple of rusted-out K cars. If you ever wondered where your tuition money goes, well, that happened. Kind of off topic. A colleague of mine was married to a woman in the same company, and used to sneak off during work hours to drink. He was an undercover alcoholic. I was quite junior and would accompany him. He'd buy the drinks, we'd drive around or sit in a park and talk shit drinking. I discovered later that his wife had suspected him of cheating, not knowing he loved liquor so much. Her investigations had led her to believe that her husband was homosexual. Because their sex life was dead and she was disappearing with me, a 22-year-old. I was at one point accused of being a faggot. Figured, hey, I didn't want to bust the guy for drinking, so I just went with it. I believe to this day he reconciled things with his wife and played the activity off as curiosity. Crazy chick. Had a job at a retail store almost 10 years ago. From the day of orientation, the manager had a thing for me immediately. Flirting ensued for a couple weeks until a closing shift when she took me in back and we used one of the display beds, and the sex was phenomenal, as she was secretly a freak. My oblivious ass didn't notice the wedding ring until after we hooked up, and she said her husband was cool with it. This turned into me hanging out at her apartment and hooking up every now and again. Never really turned into anything work-wise, just a nice perk of a random job. It just fizzled after I left the job. She's since had a baby, and I've got married and had 2 as well. An old manager of mine had a thing about women wearing bright lipstick. He offered to pay me an extra $3 per hour if I just wore bright red lipstick to work each day, which I figured was harmless and cost me nothing. I was a minor at the time, and he never made any sexual comments towards me or made me uncomfortable, but it was strongly implied to be a fetish thing. Apparently he made the same deal with an older co-worker of mine, and also offered $100 for a picture of her feet. My elder cousin moved into our house while I was in high school. He strikes up a relationship with my math teacher at the time. Suddenly I go from a C student to an A student. When my cousin said he was going to break up with her, I pretty much begged him not to for a few more weeks until the end of the school year. He kept it going for a few more weeks and I got an A. Great guy. Started sleeping with my manager after 1 month on the job. Didn't do it to get ahead, just happened one night after getting drinks at a company event. She was 31 and I was 22. I ended up getting better shifts because of it. But once the office gossip began, I stopped it. She moved on to another co-worker who was a friend of mine, but I didn't mind because I moved on to another co-worker who was more attractive in my opinion. After leaving that job and starting a new one, I began dating my new manager after a month and we've been together for almost 2 years now. We don't work together anymore, but when we did, I got the best schedule. Other people were a little pissed off understandably, but the head boss didn't care because he was openly dating someone below him and giving her preferential treatment, so he couldn't really say anything.
Subscribe for more daily uploads. And thank you.